Slow traffic. In half of a mile, right turn onto Northern Boulevard.
Ceiling. And Congressman Roy warned today, Speaker McCarthy, about Chip Roy, I should say, about Speaker McCarthy, that it's not due for a while, but that it's going to cause a real problem potential. They should, start working on it now? Is that his message?
Yes, it was. I don't know that will necessarily happen, but we do know that there's a very angry progressive Republican wing in the not progressive, but conservative Republican wing in the House that is really wanting to leave its mark, and it was very clear last week as we went up to 15 ballots to elect Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker, and they've extracted some concessions we can talk about in a second that they give them some leverage in the debt limit debate. But what we have is a situation that looks an awful lot like 2011 when we had financial markets rattled and the S&P downgraded its rating for U.S. sovereign debt. The ingredients that are similar is you have a Republican House with a populist wing that's very strong. You have a Democratic Senate, you have a Democratic president, you have the same configuration then. But now the populists are even more so than they were back then, and it's a very narrow majority, and that we were reminded that throughout last week with all the chaos that was going on the floor.
Yeah, and the debt ceiling and the funding, all of this comes with a group of amendments that want to get tacked on or prevented from being tacked on, and that is one of the things that was, as I understand it, a major part of the negotiation for McCarthy and his speakership. How have things worked out on that, and are they worked out?
Well, what we have is a debt limit increase that's going to come due sometime probably after July, probably the third quarter of this year. And yes, we have the Republicans really pushing McCarthy to attach some strings to this, some deep spending cuts. And there's some things that came out of his conversations last week with some of the populists, the Freedom Caucus members that were his dissidents, and that some concessions that he made to line up their support. And that includes pushing for some spending cuts using the 2020 level for discretionary spending for defense and non-defense as the guidepost, as the level to be sought in 2024. That represents a $130 billion decrease over projected spending. You have a number of they're requesting and received commitments to get conservatives on more of the key committees, essentially jumping to the head of the line out of seniority and getting on some key committees like the Rules Committee. And that's the committee that, of course, decides which amendments can be decided on the floor in the terms of the debate. It's a pretty powerful one. But then the biggest one of all is allowing for the speakership to be only one member has to can call for a vote of the House to replace the speaker.
And Laura, we have about a minute, but I want to get to there are actually coming up this week 3 bills regarding abortion. I caught Congresswoman Nancy Mace on CBS Face the Nation, as heard here on Bloomberg, saying that she's really concerned that Republican moderates have lost a lot of clout. Is that a real fear?
Oh, I think that it's yes, they have. they, the conservatives have really gotten a lot out of these negotiations, and it'll be very hard for McCarthy to keep them in line and push for bills that have more moderate stances on them. And I want to say very briefly that tomorrow, his next test comes tomorrow when they have to pass the rules package that he negotiated with some of these changes for the conservatives, and some of the Congress Republicans like Nancy Mace today said they may not vote for it, and Democrats are not going to vote for this package, so they may not be able to get Congress up and running yet.
Yeah, so it's not over. All right, Laura, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. That is Bloomberg congressional reporter Laura Litvem. I'm Ed Baxter, and this is Bloomberg.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 1061 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Just gone 7:28 in the morning right here in Hong Kong and Singapore. It is 6:28 in the evening on the eastern seaboard of the United States. I'm Rashad Salami.
And I'm Brian Curtis here in Hong Kong alongside Rish. We're seeing markets rally this morning. The ASX 200 up 0.9%. Now trading in Tokyo today due to holiday, but most of the other futures are up. We'll get details on markets coming up in about 10 minutes or so. Now it's time for some of the top stories of the hour.
Alibaba is saying that it'll invest more than $1 billion in Turkey for a logistics hub at Istanbul's airport. It's also planning to build Turkey's biggest data center in Temeli near the capital of Ankara. That according to Baba President Michael Evans in the interview with Sabah newspaper. The Chinese e-commerce giant targeting Turkey for expansion because of its strong production capacity. Evans saying that this could back e-commerce and become part of Alibaba's supply chain in Europe and the Middle East. Alibaba's president also urging Turkey to improve its e-commerce regulations to, quote, address certain shortcomings to have fair competition.
China's economic growth apparently will be back on track soon. The comment comes from Guo Shuqing, who's party secretary of the People's Bank of China. He said China's economy will rebound because of its optimized COVID response. In an interview with the People's Daily, Guo pledged to use financial policies to boost the income of people affected by COVID. And he also talked about stepping up support for private enterprises. He said the financial sector should develop products that should encourage home and car purchases, and that China needs to stay on high alert for imported inflation, even as domestic prices remain stable.
All right, well, let's have a look at Twitter as it's making deeper cuts into its diminished trust and safety team handling global content moderation. We're told at least a dozen more cuts on Friday night affected workers in the company's Dublin and Singapore offices. Workers on teams handling the social network's misinformation policy, global appeals and state media on the platform were also eliminated since taking over the company, I should say. Elon Musk has overseen firings or departures of roughly 5,000 of Twitter's 7,500 employees. He also instituted a, quote, hardcore work environment for those remaining.
Well, Wall Street tech bulls are counting on the industry's mega-cap stocks to move higher before long and start a rebound in the S&P 500. That's all tied up in what the Fed does. We get more from Bloomberg's Susanna Palmer.
The hope is that the Federal Reserve is coming close to wrapping up its inflation-fighting campaign, and that tech, the group that suffered the most from interest rate hikes, will recover. The prospect, while still not happening right now, came a step closer to reality Friday when the latest employment report showed wage growth slowing, which the Fed is looking for as a sign of progress in its inflation battle. Susanna Palmer, Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
All right, well, with all that in mind, let's say it's time now to have a look at some of those stories making headlines around the world. Well, the flow of travelers underway to China under the limited opening. Ed Baxter has global news.
Yeah, that's right, Rish. And it comes just 2 weeks before the Lunar New Year holiday marks an end to Beijing's efforts to basically keep out the virus. For some, it means jubilation and family reunions. For other citizens, it means grave concern about the open spread of COVID. And Bloomberg's Stephen Engel reports Well, for businesses.
Many people here in Hong Kong who have businesses across the border and, of course, extended family in mainland China. This is really the first time that they'd be able to apply for that quota to go into China. John Lee, the chief executive of Hong Kong, saying the next step in Hong Kong's opening up is going to be a relaxation of that quota, but he gave no timetable.
And Hong Kong border checks have reopened now. The SMPC is reporting that 45,000 plus crossed the border by Sunday night, and the daily quota is of 60,000. Now, President Biden makes his journey to the border today. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says a better immigration system is being sought.
What we are trying to do is draw people in a safe and orderly way, which is not the case now.
Now, Mayorkas says they're trying to incentivize individuals to make an appointment, file an application, and cut out smuggling organizations. Meanwhile, Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the president needs to really do something this time.
This is for nothing but for show unless it begins to enforce the immigration laws already that exist in the United States of America that are contained in the letter that are provided to the president today.
Abbott also says the federal government needs to reimburse Texas for the money it has spent in trying to enforce immigration policy. Thousands of supporters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro broke through security barriers and invaded Congress, the Supreme Court, and the presidential palace today. President Lula da Silva is not in the palace, but Bloomberg's Peter Millard says it appears to be under control now.
Well, it appears that security forces have been able to get the protesters out of Congress and the presidential palace, and they're moving them away from, the main avenue where the government offices and ministries are.
Police have used pepper spray and have cleared some of the spaces. This bears a striking resemblance to the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, and this is Bloomberg. All right, Brian and Rish.
All right, well, thank you very much indeed for that, Ed. We are looking forward to the start of the trading day across Asia. We don't have any trading, of course, in Japan today. It would normally be 25 minutes away as it's a public holiday for Coming of Age Day. But we are looking at positivity. We're also looking here at what this reopening of the Chinese borders might actually mean in the longer term here as people, families reunited, sometimes after as long as 3 years of not being able to visit one another. We got all that and more on the way. This is Bloomberg.
Breaking news first. December payrolls rise more than expected.
223,000 jobs created.
Wages surprise to the downside.
An equity lift in the market.
How does the Fed view this?
Reaction first from former Fed Governor Randy Krasner.
This is the immaculate disinflation report.
And U.S. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh.
I hope we continue seeing the unemployment number come down. I think we have room to grow.
The news you need, the names you trust. Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. The university helped biomedical engineering professor Tara Alvarez launch a startup that may revolutionize vision therapy.
Our startup through NJIT is called Ocular Motor Technology. We create virtual reality vision therapy in a head-mounted display. So it's gaming, and basically we're sugarcoating the therapy so that children and young adolescents don't even realize they're doing therapy. To accomplish this, we need biomedical engineers, which are here on NJIT campus, computer scientists, artists, people that are into story development, and then we are collaborating with a lot of the large pediatric medical centers. This idea of a startup culture is extremely important to not just NJIT and the National Science Foundation, but also to the U.S. as a societal whole.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Burden LLP Accountants and Advisors presents Tax Chat with Joseph Most, Tax Senior Principal in Burden's Real Estate Practice.
The Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017 imposed limitations on the deductibility of interest expense for many businesses. And starting in 2022, the limitations will become stricter. Previously, depreciation and amortization expense were not factored as reductions to taxable income when calculating interest expense limitations. This is no longer the case, resulting in significant decreases in interest deductions. Helping clients plan for the possible is what we do at Burden. We factor in a company's unique circumstances to develop an approach to help reduce overall tax liability. If you're a business owner looking to maximize tax savings, let Burden help you move forward with confidence.
For more tax chat from Burden Accountants and Advisors, visit BurdenLLP.com. That's BERDONLLP.com. Burden Accountants and Advisors. We listen, we solve, we do.
Now that so much work happens outside the office, your firm can't afford to let compliance slip when it comes to audio and video calls. Bloomberg's surveillance solutions now transcribes, translates, and investigates voice data in over 65 languages across 80 channels. It's also the only product on the market that can monitor and interrupt Bloomberg communications in real time, all in one central AI-powered tool. Explore all our surveillance solutions at Bloomberg.com/explore/compliance.
On the latest edition of the Sound On podcast, my conversation with Labor Secretary Marty Walsh about December's jobs report.
Slow traffic. Your destination is ahead on the right.